I'm Melanie Schaffer. Welcome to Mel on the Street. Now, today I'm joined by Brad Kitchens, CEO of Element One Hydrogen and Critical Minerals. Brad, thank you so much for joining me today.
Mel, thanks for bringing me onto the street.
So, I just want to start really broad. Where are we within the cycle of critical minerals? And you could talk a little bit about hydrogen within that space as well.
Sure. With us, both hydrogen and critical minerals are totally intertwined, and I'll get into the reason for that in a sec. But I think natural hydrogen in itself, it's a new industry. So it's something that I like to talk about right at the beginning so that people have sort of this baseline to understand where we are. Hydrogen itself is energy like oil and gas, and and what I like to do is I like to equate something that everybody knows, which is, let's say, a gallon of gas, so 4 liters of gas. And that produces a certain amount of energy. And that energy is equivalent to 1 kilogram of hydrogen. But right now, the cost of a gallon of gas in the US is roughly about $6, not 6 US. There is hydrogen, and hydrogen has been produced for a couple of decades, but it's called green hydrogen. And this is where hydrogen's extracted from water, electrolysis effectively. And that's extremely good form of energy. It's very environmentally positive. It produces very good quality energy. But the problem with it is that it's very expensive to produce. You need quite a big infrastructure, and the energy to produce the energy is quite expensive. So it costs about $10 to $14 for that same equivalent of gallon of gas. Natural hydrogen, though, is a bit of a game changer. Not only is it abundant, it reusable, recyclable, I was going to say, but it's environmentally friendly, the same as green hydrogen. But the key with this is that the equivalent of 1 gallon gas that's selling for $6 in the US, we can produce for about 50 cents. And you get all the benefits, the economic benefits of, of that cheap price with all the environmental benefits, but also the abundancy. We'll get into that a little bit. One of the processes that we use, and there's 3 different ways that you can extract natural hydrogen. But one of the processes we use is fairly unique in that we're also extracting hydrogen from rocks. So it's not like your traditional oil and gas drilling, fracking, but it is literally taking something that occurs over millions and millions of years. And that's the other form of hydrogen exploration, and that's accumulation plays. And what happens in accumulation plays is that hydrogen is formed in the mantle of the earth and it rises up until it's trapped in some geological structure. You get companies like Coloma, which is Bill Gates' company, Max Power, which is having an extreme amount of success in Saskatchewan, QIMC, the same thing in Nova Scotia. They're looking for accumulation plays. We also have one of the top geologists that is sourcing 3 different accumulation plays for us down in the US, and we're looking forward to working with a very large European exploration group to help them with their projects in Canada. Um, that's looking for hydrogen that's accumulated over millions of years. What we've been able to do at Columbia University through working with Grishma Gatakota is develop the ability to create natural hydrogen in real time. So we can go in, we can apply our solution, if you will. And what that does is it creates hydrogen, but also the residual or the cherry on top, the side gig, if you wish, is also creating critical minerals, such as magnesium, nickel, chromium, vanadium. So it's all working together quite nicely.
Yeah, so talking about
Sorry, very long answer. My apologies.
No worries, worries. That's where I wanted to go next. So I wanted to ask you this research with Columbia University. What specifically are you looking to validate through that work? And what does Columbia add that you would maybe not have been able to internally?
So I guess we are all also a technology company. We have the best boots on the ground. We've got a great team. But through Grishma and our work at Columbia, we've now patented, or it's patent pending, the technology to extract hydrogen from ultramafic rocks. So what this means, and ultramafic rocks are found in about 7% of the Earth's core, or surface as well. So what this means is it allows us the ability to create energy um, wherever there's ultramafic rocks. And that could be it could be a First Nations property. There's a couple of communities in British Columbia that are built on or near ultramafics. It could be supplying energy for a mining city, mining town, or mining operations. Uh, we talk about the Ring of Fire in Ontario and how it's a very, very good find, but the infrastructure up there is terrible. We have the ability to provide all the energy that they need for mining, for milling, for exploration, for their trucks, for their houses, without having to bring in or truck in diesel, which is extremely expensive and it's extremely um, harmful to the environment. So we're looking at not necessarily a huge energy play, but we're looking at something that's more localized, something that if there is the ultramafic rock deposit there, we can definitely generate the energy and we can support the community, the mine, and data centers in that regard. So that's what our end goal is.
Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit before, and I want to go back and talk about this a little bit more in depth. You talked about producing natural hydrogen alongside minerals like nickel, cobalt, and manganese. When you think about the business model, how do these pieces sort of fit together, and which side ultimately drives the economics?
That's a good question because natural hydrogen in itself is a new industry. It's very tough to put a valuation on the company. You look at, and I'm a huge fan of Max Power. They're good people. We've met them, we know them, we like them, and I think they like us too. But they're doing an extremely good job with their project in Saskatchewan, and they've gone from this time last year a market cap of $5 million to they're now over $360 million. So putting sort of a baseline market cap valuation on a natural hydrogen company is very difficult right now. So that's what we're pushing. It's a different angle. Nobody else can, well, there are a couple of private companies that can extract hydrogen from rocks, but no other public companies. So that's huge. We want to do our first in-field test this summer. Right now, we can produce it in our lab at Columbia. But also, as you mentioned, that process that we use, not only can you extract hydrogen, but the same way that the hydrogen is released from the rocks, it will produce something like magnesium. And we have recently announced in the last 3 weeks our plan to proceed with a magnesium plant in Washington State, where we're going to be extracting magnesium from aldine sand, which is a form of ultramafic rock, and we're going to be the sole producer of magnesium oxide in the U.S.
And that's the MOU that you recently signed.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah. So it's great.
So what are the
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to jump
I
in.
was going to ask what are the actual next steps there, and what needs to happen to move that from the concept into something that is commercially viable?
Well, we've just submitted uh, a grant to the Department of Energy, and what that did for us is it put together the whole business plan. This was a 24 document project, so quite extensive, which goes into development of the plant, which goes into the materials that we're using. But here's the key thing with us is we now have a source of these ultramafic rocks. So we don't have to do any exploration. We don't have to do any drilling. We don't have to do any assaying. We don't have to do any 43101s. We don't have to do a bankable feasibility study. We actually have the material right there. It's effectively like we've got, and that's in the Twin Sisters quarry that's run by Millbank. based out of Portland, but they're moving into Washington as well. In addition to having access to initially 50,000 tons of that a year, going up to 100,000 tons, we also have the location of our plant, which is adjacent to Millbrook's new processing plant. So we already have and it used to be an old sawmill. Permitting in our process will be a very easy deal. We should be up and into production within the next 18 to 24 months. What that means for us, just starting out with one line, this is a closed loop line, so there's no tailings, no other waste product we have to worry about afterwards. At the end of our process, the only thing we're left with is about 6% sand. And that sand, that's clean sand and sand that we can give off to construction industry. But what it means for us is that within 18 months, we could be at a $90 million a year operations just at the kicking off. So that means probably about a $40 to $45 million to our bottom line. And that's something that we're going to be able to get to in the next, I'm repeating myself, but the next 18 to 24 months.
You've also referenced a prospectivity model that combines, geophysics and structured geology for the hydrogen exploration. At a high level, what does that improve in terms of how you identify targets and I guess how you think about standing out in what's still sort of a very early stage space, as you've mentioned?
And important to where our business model is going. And that is joint venturing with companies, communities, tech leaders, and developing cleaner, more abundant energy. So it's a joint venture using our technology. We're the only public company that has this, and we're looking to prove it in the field this year. But we have all the confidence. It's a pretty cool process. So it is effectively taking what had in the past taken millions of years, a lot of heat in the bottom of or in the middle of the earth to form this hydrogen as it rises up. We're able to do that. Effectively, it's like an environmentally friendly fracking. So we'll shoot down our source because it needs relatively low amounts of energy or heat. We'll be able to extract the hydrogen without any other source, and we don't have to go down too deep. We're only going down about 1,000 meters.
Right on the technology front, you mentioned it a few minutes ago. The patent pending approach to generating hydrogen, from the naturally occurring rock systems. Can you walk me through the core idea and how that compares in practical terms to more established hydrogen production models?
Okay, so let's talk about the established hydrogen production models itself. So green hydrogen, it's extraction of hydrogen from H2O. And you need wind turbines and hydroelectric power. It's a very difficult process. And it's also a difficult one because hydrogen's not the easiest to transport. So we're sort of taking that transport equation out of our operating plant. What we want to do is we want to go closer to the end user of the energy. And if we are in a location where we can use we have ultramafic rocks, we can use our technology and we can, and that's really what the business plan is there. It's a simple process. It's literally drilling a hole, putting our cocktail down there so that it creates a reaction with the ultramafic rocks, which generates the hydrogen, which creates a bigger reaction with more of the ultramafic rocks, which creates more hydrogen. And at the same time it's creating the hydrogen, we will have the basis for in situ critical mineral mining. So it goes hand in glove that way.
So I want to sort of zoom out for a minute and talk about the amount of attention right now that's on domestic supply chains and energy with everything that's going on globally, but especially across North America. Where do you realistically see Element One fitting into that? And what do you think needs to happen for policy support to actually translate into something tangible for the company?
We have, and we're starting to take a hand in that policy change itself. Because this is a new industry, people aren't sure how to react to it. People aren't sure what the opportunities are. It's my job to come on your show and talk about what we have to offer, but also how can we best use it? Do we do a study with the First Nations to see what communities would benefit from what we're doing? Do we work with an Amazon that wants to put in a new data center somewhere? There was an announcement yesterday that Max Power, and I use them a bit, but Max Power entered into an MOU with a company that's creating the energy for data centers. The critical minerals is also a cool angle too, because as I mentioned, we're going to be the first and only producer of magnesium oxide in the US. So all the US magnesium, all the requirements, all the Department of Defense or Department of War, they have to source the magnesium from outside the country. We're going to be a bit of a game changer in being able to do this. For me, I'm in Vancouver. This mine site is literally 40 minutes away across the border, but the border lineups aren't too big right now. But it's very easy for us to get to, and it happens to be the only olivine sand operation in the U.S. So this gives us a critical leg up on all the rest of the magnesium suppliers.
Yeah, and so you've mentioned a bunch of different things that investors can be looking forward to over the series of questions that I've asked so far. But if we can sort of get it into one sort of answer, what are the key milestones that investors should be watching over the next 12 to 18 months?
Okay, so there's 3 core business groups in Element 1. And that is accumulation play for hydrogen. What we're going to be doing is working, as I mentioned, with other companies, looking for accumulation plays in Canada. We've developed 3 different areas in the US that we want to go and collect those claims. So from the accumulation play, those are the 2 things, is our joint venture on exploration and also accumulation of claims in the US. The second one is creating hydrogen from rocks. We have 1 project in Alaska already and 4 projects in British Columbia. We're going to be doing some test drills, test sites on taking the success we've had in the lab and or turning it from the table into actual performance in the street. And then the third one is further development of our magnesium plant in Washington State. That's something we've just signed 3 months ago, and we're looking to produce samples so that we can create offtake uh, um, agreements. And those are the keys on each of those. And with each one of those operating angles, there's a ton of news that's going to be coming out. For your viewers, what I would suggest is just keep watching, see how we kick off the boxes. We've already done a lot in the last 2 months. We completed a financing at the beginning of April, and that was the start of the dominoes. The dominoes are starting to fall now, and all the operations are starting to kick in.
Great, and I'll be looking forward to watching as more news drops. Brad, I want to really thank you for joining me today.
Mel, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
And thanks to everyone for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes of Mel on the Street. I'm Melanie Schaffer. See you next time.